Now, as you invest in built in this account that you've created, the Roth IRA, the traditional IRA, the 401k at your job, you want to have a proper balance of different types of investments in that vehicle. There's multiple different types of investments that you can pick. Two of the most popular are stocks and bonds. So stocks are ownership in a company, and those are called equities, or equity ownership equity, or bonds, which is debt, which is the company owing you money. So that is a debt investment, or what's called fixed investment. If a stock goes down, that means your ownership value has decreased in that company, but that ownership value can go up and down constantly based on the rise and falls in the market. All that is based on supply and demand. If there's a big demand for the ownership of that company or people wanting to invest in that company, the stocks rise. If there's a lot of people wanting to sell because of wanting to get out of the market or negative report about that company, people sell and that stock falls. Bonds work differently. Bonds are a debt instrument, which basically means that the company has borrowed money from you and they have to repay that money to you, or they get foreclosed on essentially, or they close down. So when you buy a bond, you're basically saying, I'm going to lend you money, and the company or the government agrees to pay you back a certain interest rate over the course of time, and at the end of the time, you get the original investment back. So you can you can buy $1,000 bond with a 6% return, and that means that every year you get a $60 payment on that $1,000, and however the length of the bond term is, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 1 year, 50 years. At the end of that span, you get your original investment back. So in your investment vehicle, your portfolio is what it's called, you want to have a certain amount of equity stocks and you want to have a certain amount of bonds in that portfolio. Now, a good piece of advice that I heard was however old you are is how much percentage bonds or fixed income you want to have in your portfolio. The reason being is bonds are fixed. There's low risk with bonds. You get an income that's coming in from them, but there's also a cap or a ceiling on the upside because you're not getting any more return on that bond than what you've already agreed to. Stocks, on the other hand, can give you a multiplied return. They also have more risk. So the younger you are, the more stock or equity you want in your portfolio because you are willing to take a little bit more risk and you have a little bit more time for recovery. So at 20 years old, you're going to see a lot of rise and falls over the course of the lifetime of your investments. And so at 20, you want to have 80% equity or 80% stock in your mix of investments and 20% of bonds, which are fixed. They help balance each other out. The bonds give you steady income. You know what it's going to be over the course of time. The stocks go rise and falls, but they're going to trend up. And so as you get older, you get more and more fixed income and less equity in your mix of investments. So at somebody at 50 years old, they should look for 50% equity, 50% stock, and 50% bond. Somebody at 60 years old, and you're moving up more on the fixed because at this point you've invested over your lifetime and you want more consistency of income and less risk of loss on that. So when somebody gets to 65 years old, you should be looking to have 2/3 of your income in fixed investments and about 35% in equity. So the less risk you're facing, the older you get.